Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to the shack.
Welcome to the story
our
shack.
awkward welcoming, at least.
Yep.
But this is Story Shack with Jake and Zack. I'm Zack.
And I'm Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Hi, Zack.
Let's skip the pleasantries and go right into our double feature.
Yeah.
Movies. Or I call it Then and Now.
Then and Now, yeah.
Yeah, Then and Now. So
not a lot of pleasantries with this duo.
No. Wait, us duo or the two movies duo?
The movies duo.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought at first, but then I was like, oh, maybe he's talking about us. Okay, moving on.
We've got pleasantries. Yeah, we're good.
Shall I kick off with the thermometers?
Yes, kick
Rotten
off with
Tomatoes
the thermometers.
Things? Keep with that for this, at least this month of movies. All right. We said Texas, right? Okay, so Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974 versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 2003. The 1974 version comes in fresh at 89% with the critics and 82% with the audience.
Okay.
So that's nice. The 2003 remake or reboot came in rotten at 37% with the critics, and then, oh crap, that's either a 0 or an 8. 50 or 58% with the audience. I think that's just barely fresh, technically. I think it's over 50%.
Okay.
So it's definitely a shift, a difference there.
Yeah. Which we've kind of been seeing through.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Which is funny because my thing with the original on this one, kind of like we talked about with the previous couple, were it's slower.
Yeah.
Slower paced. I think they did a good job moving things forward at a certain point, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like it picked up pace. Some of the others, I don't know. Do you have any comments on the pacing?
Yeah, I mean, it felt... I expected it to be a lot slower than it actually was. Like, it's a pretty short movie. It comes in at like 80-something minutes. 83, I think. So, and... yeah, I mean, it takes like a good 30 minutes, I think, until there's actually some killing and something going on. And then that kind of continues throughout it. But yeah, it's definitely a slow start. Both of them, the old and new. But
yeah, the newer one was kind of slow.
Yeah.
But then once that one goes into it, it really hits the ground running. I feel like
both of them
had
do.
me on the edge.
Once it kind of hits that point, there's a moment in the old one that, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty turned off of the old one for that first 30 minutes or so until the first guy gets killed, because they so they pull over on the side of the road for this guy in a wheelchair to pee.
Yeah.
And he's peeing into a coffee can when he's in an open field, which makes absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah, like unless it's a matter of because he'd had to stand up.
I guess
but then
maybe,
you could
but
also use the can in the van.
Yeah, but point it out. But anyways, that was weird. I didn't like the guy in the wheelchair a whole bunch. He was kind of an annoying character for me.
Yeah, he was. I think that the acting wasn't that great because of things like that.
Yeah.
I could almost see... I started getting... I don't know if they had this at all, but, for like sets, they have their marks that they have to hit. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I don't know if that guy actually... He was just an actor playing paraplegic, right? Not.
Yeah,
actually,
I think so. I don't think he was actually in a wheelchair.
Yeah, but maybe it was just a matter of hitting marks and then hitting your lines. Right. It felt not even choreographed, but a little sloppy.
Yeah.
Too. I feel like that might be the best way to describe that.
Sloppy. I know it was kind of a chaotic shoot from what I read, but that's interesting because I didn't. In all the research I've done, I didn't see anything about the guy that was in the wheelchair actually being in a wheelchair, or like why the decision was made to have him in a wheelchair, because that just seems like a weird choice. Because they say something about it that, like, I think he had polio or something.
Oh, I missed that.
The sister. Because it's like the brother and sister are going to this place in Texas where they're having a lot of grave robbings or something. The story was a little flustered for me because it's like all news cycle things of like this radio report of them talking about grave robbings are happening at this cemetery, and they just kind of subtly hint that, oh, my grandpa's remains are here, we're coming to make sure they're still good or whatever.
Yeah, they play fast and loose with their reasoning. And
yeah.
Kind of even, it starts with the can to pee in, where it's like, that seems like kind of a fake excuse to pull
and then
over.
a truck drives by and he flies down the hill Mac and Me style.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, well, okay. And then...
Do you think it was a way to establish, this just came to me, that they're inferior or lacking or something, kind of to position them as maybe weaker as a group anyways,
possible
overall?
Yeah.
Not just like the being in a wheelchair thing or something that's a handicap, but the way that they act or something. And not the actors acting, but the way the characters behave, I guess is what I mean.
I mean, it could be.
I don't know. Because there's stuff like that. Oh, if you do stupid things, then maybe that's why you get into these crappy situations and get killed.
Right.
There's got to be some rationale there.
Yeah. The simple reasoning in the remake of, we're going to Leonard Skinner concert. We just went to Mexico, got a bunch of weed, and now we're going to Skinner concert. Call it a day.
Like, yeah, it was just enough, and then... it doesn't have to come back into play later.
Yeah, exactly. All we needed was a reason why they were driving through Texas.
Yeah.
That's all you really need. And they kind of, in the original, they try to add this kind of grave robbing story, and it kind of plays out later with one of the Sawyer boys, the hitchhiker that they pick up. So going between the two hitchhikers from the original and the new one.
Yeah.
Both are... Go ahead. You.
Or me or you? Me.
I'll go. Both of them are creepy in their own ways. The original, he's just a weird guy. Like, I was trying to put myself in like a theater in the 70s when I was watching it to be like, take all of my modern knowledge out of this and just watch it as like a first-time viewer back in the day. And there's a lot of creepy, weird shit that happens that's just like, all right, this would kind of get under my skin if I was watching it, or if I was, 12, I would be kind of creeped out. He did a lot of weird stuff he looks weird. He does the knife thing with his hand and takes a picture and then burns the picture. It's just weird.
Yeah, he was, they did a good job in establishing that he's weird. Something's off with him. They kind of, both movies have that moment, like kind of like a shot where most of them are sitting back away from the hitchhiker.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what's going on? Not like they're hanging out with them or anything. More, or like it's understandably so, I think.
Yeah.
On the reboot one.
Yeah.
Because she looks like fucked up. The other guy just kind of had like a weird scar thing and then was kind of behaving weird. And then went even weirder with it.
Yeah. And there's also more of a reason in the remake for them to pick her up. Like in the original, he's just kind of on the side of the road looking for a ride. And they even comment like, oh, he looks weird, don't pull over kind of thing. When in the remake, there's a traumatized, like, blood-covered girl. I don't know if she was covered in blood. I don't know.
And then the girls are sympathizing.
Yeah, exactly.
And being more empathetic to...
Yeah.
Because
it just seems kind of out of left field, like, let's pick up this hitchhiker.
Yeah.
And I read on the IMDb trivia that hitchhiking went down like 18% in Texas after this movie came out.
The original?
Yeah.
Coming out? Oh, okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that checks out in my head. I wouldn't want to.
No, I don't think I'd ever pick up a Hitchhiker. I've seen too many horror movies.
And that's the thing is it's made me go, I just wouldn't do that. I've contemplated it, but I would probably attribute it to movies.
Yeah.
That have these things happen.
There's that, I think there was a real serial killer where he only went in because their doors weren't locked. And he took that as an invitation, as a sign for him to come in and do what he was going to do. I've
that's funny because then in my head I've always had that, it's even just for people who are going to be burglars or something, breaking in and all that they'll take the easier target. That's the way I would look at it. But someone who maybe does that, it's
if there's like a mental derangement to you where you're like, if this door's locked, that's a sign from God that I shouldn't go in and kill these people. I'm not going to do it. But if this door's open, well, that's a sign from God that I got to go do some shit.
What happens when the person's like, oh, if it's locked, it's just a barrier for me to break through. But if it's unlocked, then I'm not going to. That's too easy. The opposite.
That's what we call an overachiever.
An overachiever. It's just a go-getter. Just really goes at those locked doors with an axe.
With an axe. So in the remake, one of, I guess arguably, one of the best kind of shots in modern horror, if not horror in general, when she shoots herself in the head the camera focuses on everybody in terror watching them, goes through the head, back out the whole of the car, and deep into the field beyond. And I loved it. I love that
really
shot
like
so
that
much.
too. Yeah, it creeps me out too.
Yeah, it's got kind of that Evil Dead vibe behind it, where it just cuts low and
and it has that. Or it's at that point I felt like things escalated.
Yeah,
almost kind of slowly but surely, but it was always almost like one-upping.
Yeah, the camera wasn't moving before. Everything was static. And then as soon as all of that happens, then the camera's moving, they're going places, they're outside of the van. So
that's a cool touch.
Yeah.
For that. That's good.
And the original didn't really have that. They kind of throw this guy out and he tries to write something on the car. Yeah. Which I don't think they really explain.
No, they were just questioning it when they saw it. They're like, what was he writing? And then, I don't know.
Right.
It's presumably some potential demonic thing. Because that's the other thing I had noted was there was all those, I think it was decomposed bodies on I put monument, but I think it was like a statue, like the cemetery. It must have been in the cemetery, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That they were showing a little bit of. And then I just did the cut out that
Zach, cut that one out. Zach, if you're listening.
But the differences between the Hitchhikers, I preferred the newer one, definitely. And then they tied it into being a victim as opposed to being part of I'm gonna lure you in.
Right.
And the lure you in was, or another one, sorry, that they're a part of it, part of the family are the owners at the gas station, rest stop. I guess I combined the two.
Yeah, there's more of a family dynamic there, rather than it being just a random guy that they picked up that then they happens to be related to them and shows up later.
Yeah, and then they had to show how meek he was to the dad. That wasn't the grandpa. That was the dad.
Yeah.
The grandpa
so was he the dad? Because
I don't know.
It's weird. Point. So jumping forward,
just call him grandpa. It doesn't have to be.
Well, grandpa was the extremely old guy.
Oh yeah.
That looks like a mannequin with a mask on his face.
They put a mask on.
I've never seen a guy look that old before. like comes back and he's caught the woman, the dad or whoever. He's like beating him and like, oh, you shouldn't have messed with those kids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Thing. But then when they're doing the dinner scene later, that the hitchhiker's kind of like, you stay out of this, he's the cook kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a weird power struggle or something.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to make sense, I guess, but I was questioning it.
Yeah. And then there's...
You get the sense that the sheriff in the newer ones, I just like to think of him as a sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the worst sheriff.
Yeah. That he seems to be in charge for the most part, comparatively.
Yeah.
They kind of all share a role. They all have their own responsibility.
Right. They're all working toward the same goal.
Yeah.
In their own separate ways.
Yeah.
What else in the original? So the first kill / introduction of Leatherface, I really liked it in the original. It's not as memorable to me in the remake, but the original, it felt out of left field and kind of surprised me a little bit. And that's what kind of won me over with this one, where I was like, all right, I'm invested. Let's see what happens. Because it's the one guy that's like outside of the house, and then he just goes in to look at something, and out of nowhere, Leatherface comes around the corner and hits him with a sledgehammer. And then
they both kind of had that same thing.
Yeah, and then he just starts twitching really bad, and he brings him through and slams that door shut. And it's like, dope. Okay, cool. It was just really quick and brutal, and for it being a chainsaw massacre, there's not a lot of chainsaw, and there's not a lot of massacre with it. And so in the IMDb trivia, he was going for like a PG rating.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And because of the horror elements to it, they bumped it up to an R rating. Because there's no real, like, gory violence. There's a little bit of blood splatter and stuff, and there's the, like, cuts and stuff. But with the chainsaw, you don't really see anything too brutal with it. A lot of the deaths are just kind of off screen. Mm-hmm. And that's a big difference between that and the remake, which is gets pretty brutal, gets pretty gross.
Yeah, the one guy gets his leg cut off.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't necessarily like any of the characters that much except Jessica Biel's character for that one.
Right.
But I was really rooting for, you get away, get through the sheets. But the way they film it is so good because you also, as the audience, are like, I have no idea where he's going and is he going to get out of this? It added to the confusion.
Yeah.
And then just straight up gets caught. And then, there's some aspects of that. And with the goriness of it that I think they did better, that worked better for the remake. So I'm surprised it's that low. Yeah. Not so surprised with the critics for the Rotten Tomatoes score. I was just thinking, but that may be close.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would rate the original that high, though.
No. I mean, it's different generations. So I think, like, for it being, like, one of the more newer at the time modern horrors, like it was 74 back when, like, before the big 80s horror boom. For it being what it was, I can see it getting pretty high reviews from audience and critics and stuff, just because there are a lot of good, like, scare moments in it that didn't really get me, but I know the movie, I've been around. It's not like a new thing for me, but if it was like, oh, let's go check out this movie, it sounds interesting, I would be kind of flipping my shit if I were at a drive-in watching that. I wrote down too that there's all the super creepy, like, set pieces, I'd say, right? Set pieces, the furniture with the limbs, things like that was creepy.
were really good. They lingered a bit for me, but I think they were going for. There's a lot of it where I'm thinking, I feel like they're just padding the time at this point, but they're just trying to make it like it's crazy.
When he's like riding in the car with her after he's bagged her, and it keeps like cutting to him smiling and like, oh, you're gonna learn or whatever. Like that went on for like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of the cutting was weird. The editing was weird. Just because it's kind of sporadic and there's a lot of like close-ups, which I didn't expect and I didn't always hate, but it was a little overdone.
I think it's because I think you're thinking about the really close-ups, right?
Yeah, like you can see the veins in her eyes.
It kind of calls back to, I think, some of the older horror movies, even in the 50s, or when they had some black and white ones, I feel like, where there's the shots of them grabbing their face. Yeah, I can just kind of picture it.
Right.
So I don't know if that's on purpose as an homage, or if that's just from that time to before and then to 74 and then to now, or even just in 2003, just seeing the change in how they think they need to scare and perturb the audience.
Right. I think the goal is to make people feel uneasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the gore comes in with, you don't want to see these things happen. So, but here they are on a giant screen in front of you. How do you feel now?
Yeah, it's a little easier
to
just show that.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than kind of building the tension and kind of getting a more psychological reaction rather than...
So that'd be the difference, I'd say, because you get that weird family killer family dynamic in the newer one, and it's kind of set up, but it's also kind of just thrusted into the whole thing. It's the stuff that's more gets to you maybe it feels more visceral because you're seeing the goriness and all that.
Right.
It's not even like the goriest film, but they are explicit, or what's the graphic?
Yeah.
Right, with it. And the older one was what you were talking about, was psychological aspect of it. You really have to kind of put some effort into building it up and then having all that stuff coming out, and then there's just some weird creepy stuff peppered in.
Right.
And so it works.
Yeah.
I think I still personally like the newer one better.
Same. And the one thing, we didn't mention it, but the one thing I really, really, really like about the remake is where I didn't realize they do it. They do it in the original, but they have like the prologue with the guy narrating. But in the remake, they've got like the video that the cops made after the fact. And they do that at the beginning, and then they do it at the end, and at the end it freeze frames on that, Leatherface shot that's just kind of blurry, and I love that part of it because it adds that sense of realism of being based on a true story, even though it's not really based on a true story.
Yeah, they take, as far as I've understood it over the years, they take stuff from, is it Ed Gaines?
Yeah.
Who was, I think, in Texas or another southern.
He was in Wisconsin, I believe.
Wisconsin. Okay, never mind. But yeah, and then there was some other thing happening in Texas that was...
Yeah, there was
and then they mix in the Ted Bundy stuff because of cannibalism.
Yeah, but, I mean, overall, both of them are pretty enjoyable. And there's, of course, been multitudes of sequels. They're actually... gonna be, well, they were making another reboot / sequel that was gonna come out this year, but I think they were gonna kind of Terminator it, where forget all of these other movies have happened. This is gonna be the direct sequel to the 1974 one. But as far as I've heard, all of the test screenings and stuff have been pretty bad. So it may not be something that's happening. They've got a lot out there for they're kind of the Spider-Man of the horror world, where I mean, Michael Myers has a lot of movies, and Jason has a lot of movies, and Freddy has a lot of movies, but they're not all reboots. I feel like pretty much every single Texas Chainsaw movie is just a reboot of the previous one.
Right. So from what I recall, I don't know if I've seen the most recent Texas Chainsaw, but I think I saw there's at least 2 more after the 2003.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the second one too. It was very similar. It was in the same vein, but then you get to learn a little bit more about the family.
Yeah. I like that element of the remakes, is that they kind of, their reasoning behind it is more the family aspect, and this just fucked up Texas family that are cannibals that have a son that was either, depending on which remake you're watching, deformed, mentally disturbed,
both,
bullied.
Bullied. Yeah, that's right, because that was part of it too, right? I think that was in the second or third.
Yeah,
the remake. But yeah, one of them was called like A New Beginning or The Beginning, and I think it was actually more of a prequel.
Yeah,
technically, but because there is a point where I'm thinking, what does he do? Which maybe the third one, maybe I haven't seen that third one, because Leatherface loses his arm. He gets his leg cut in the original,
right,
but not cut off, and he gets his arm actually hacked off in the remake.
Yeah,
and so I don't know if there was a way to explain that away. Maybe they did do it.
Also,
but
in
from
the
what
remake,
I recall, in the other one, it was like a prequel.
In the remake, isn't he also missing his nose?
Right,
like
you
he
see
takes
that
his mask
for a second.
off and
I was like, oh, but then that makes me think of, wasn't that a thing that usually happened when you had syphilis or something back like a long time ago?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there's a thing that happens to your nose or cartilage. Or I'm not a doctor.
Yeah,
don't quote me on any of that, but. Yeah.
Another moment that I love in the remake that creeped me out, like, it didn't creep me out, but it was just like, that's really well done and good, is when he's chasing somebody and he looks back at Jessica Biel and he's just wearing her boyfriend's face.
I know. That was I
so
really like
good.
that.
Yeah.
Because it. And then obviously they do the drop of the ring, and then he pick.
Right.
Oh, he was going to. And it makes me go, oh, I feel bad now for him. He wasn't that much of an asshole, but I'm like, well, I did just meet him, and he's not as big of an asshole as the other guys, maybe.
I don't know his whole story. He could have been a prick.
There's the meat hook. Was in there for both. The first girl, I think, got dropped on the meat hook.
Yeah. And it's just like a subtle little thing. They don't call that big of attention to it like they do in the remake. In the remake, it's so like stabs in. And I'm sure
I think she almost instantly dies, or at least goes limp in the original, right? Yeah, and then the other one, he's hanging there alive. But they don't really go back to it until Jessica Biel sees
them. Yeah.
Yeah, and sees them. Which was also, I think, a nice touch because it's supposed to be her friend. Right. It just makes you feel more for the main character that you have now. That's the only one left alive. And then trying to save the other guy too, who then basically sacrifices himself.
Right.
And all that. It was crazy. It was like a wild ride for the remake. I think those were the only he pops out at the end, because the original, she gets in the or has the guy pull over, and then Leatherface shows up, like and they're running away.
Right.
And then
the fat trucker.
Yeah, the fat trucker. And then he had a trucker again at the end of the remake, but it was he comes back for one last scare when she's going away in the car.
Right.
And she has the baby. So that was a nice touch, because apparently they stole that baby from the family. I'm going to say allegedly, because
we don't know
it looked
the whole
like the
story.
same baby in the picture.
Yeah.
And the girl was obviously the one that shot herself that was in the picture, and there's a baby.
Yeah.
So 2 + 2 must equal 4. But allegedly.
Yeah.
They I don't know, maybe she kidnapped their family member.
I mean,
yeah, right. Dude,
seems pretty tame for what they're known for.
Ladies in the trailer are so weird.
Yeah, they're super weird.
So there were some good aspects of it. I felt like I was creeped out more by that. I was creeped out and a bit scared on that one. I think I was mostly just creeped out, and then like, what the hell is going on in the original?
Right.
Because maybe going back to towards the ending, the way she gets away feels very, very contrived, and just and it was drawn out, which kind of adds to the what's gonna happen. Is it gonna happen? But he dropped the hammer so many times, it was getting annoying.
Right.
I was like, just kill her or get away.
Exactly.
I was just kill her or get away at this point. And then when I'm saying to kill her, that's not good, because I feel like I'm supposed to be rooting for the who's supposed to be the good guy, or at least protagonist. Well, I won't use
it's like, why are you trying to make your grandpa do this? Grandpa isn't capable of doing this.
Yeah, obviously.
And also, grandpa looks really gross and weird. And fake. Very fake. I thought it was like a corpseified doll until it's kind of started moving a little bit. And I was like, oh, he's a real person. Was he a real person?
I don't know. He was up there when the one girl went up before. She just didn't move, right? Yeah. And then they brought him down later. Yeah, that's weird.
It's super weird.
Weird's the main word. I've probably said it 20 times.
Yeah, weird.
And then she gets away. I'm like, okay, I guess. And then
gotta have sequels.
Does she? I forget. Did she? So he accidentally cut himself, and he's like flailing around. But she gets in just another car, like another truck.
A truck drives by.
Just a regular truck. And then that's the end of that.
I mean, the lesson we learned at the beginning of the movie was don't stop for hitchhikers. And here he was, blood-covered hitchhiker, hop in the back of my truck. Like, come on. And I mean, the semi guy, he learned a hard lesson because he pulled over. Oh, when the hitchhiker from the beginning gets hit by the semi. And it's clearly a dummy.
Yeah.
But that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, that was...
Couldn't have happened to a creepier guy.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So then that kind of not ties in, but they mirror or parallel when she runs over the sheriff.
Yeah.
And then...
Oh, yeah, she does. And then backs over him, and then runs over him again.
Yeah. That part felt so cathartic to me.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, because I've seen this a few times before.
Yeah. Where them trying to do with the hammer felt like, all right, just fucking do it already. Her backing over and driving over him multiple times was like, I get it. I'd do that.
There was a weird time. So I've thought about this before because of the female protagonist. Then that they do, because it happens in Halloween, where it's and in Friday the 13th, where they're scared and appear weak versus female characters, but they happen to get away. And it feels very like, well, they got away, but not by their own doing.
Right.
And that's what this is too. A little bit of it, I can't remember exactly how she handles it for Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, but I think in the original she was like hiding in a closet, and then there's just stuff where I'm like, once he gets tossed out the window and then disappears, now I'm probably blending in the Rob Zombie one, right? Because he did the remakes, which were fun. I'm tangenting here, but it still feels like, yeah, they might have came out the other side successful, but it wasn't like an Ripley versus the alien. But even that was she kind of was like that, but she also is very smart and intelligent and is in charge of the ship kind of thing. And then at the end really finally musters up and handles it as like a badass instead of, oh, I just barely escaped. Right. There's like a slight distinction there. And then I think that changed as the years went on.
Right.
Bit, but
there isn't a lot of character development in these.
But they could have made it like a male protagonist, and then I don't know.
Well, I think it was kind of the start of the final girl.
Right. Yeah, that trope or concept.
Little column A, little column B.
Yeah. I think, well, we talked about the endings. I was thinking about that too. That was pretty much all I got.
That's pretty much all I got.
Any closing notes on it?
The remake was better, but I understand the original. I appreciate the original for what it was, although a lot of it took me out, including the really annoying guy in the wheelchair who ends up getting slashed to death by a chainsaw while sitting in his chair in the dark. It was just a lot of it was just confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I think...
Yeah, that's a good word for the first one.
Both.
Weird and confusing.
Yeah. But, I mean, you kind of want that for horror. Because if they don't know what the fuck's going on, how are we supposed to know what the fuck's going on? So it kind of leaves you, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what I think she's kind of thinking in the
hell.
back of the truck at the end. Like, what the fuck was that about?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a almost more film quality. Maybe it was in a festival kind of feel to the original that makes it seem like, yeah, this is more, again, I don't want to just say artsy, but like a film, going for that film, but there's hardly any plot, and there's so it's obviously a horror movie.
It's shot beautifully.
Yeah, and that too with some of the stuff. And then there's some cool things they did in the newer one, like you said, with the pulling the camera back through the gun wound to the head. I think the gore and stuff was nicer. It was more entertaining and captivating.
Yeah,
I'd say. And the other one was just weird and confusing, but both of them gave me weird gut wrenching feelings, just in a different way.
Yeah,
I'd say one was more visceral and the other was like, I don't know about this. I feel uneasy.
Yeah.
Versus.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for popping a squat on the old Story Shack couch with us.
Yeah. And just, hang out a little bit if you want, or feel free to take off. You could always rest your feet by the fire, stay warm.
We got some finger sandwiches.
Ooh, did we bring those today?
Yeah, we brought those.
Nice. Yeah. I'm going to nom-noms on some of that.
Yeah.
And then join us next time on the Story Shack with Jake and Zack.
With Jake.
And Zack. That's me.